Never looked back. All my pal said was, "It's down, and it's not moving," and that was good enough for me. It was near Holly Hill. For what it's worth, I don't believe these things are supernatural. I believe they're flesh and blood, with capabilities largely unknown because no one's ever captured one. Judging by the weird, coppery, metallic, rotten egg smell on the hood, yet, I fricka-ing smelled it to see if there was anything to smell, and judging by the fact that both skinwalker stories and stories about skunk apes, Bigfoot, etc., are all frequently accompanied by bad smells which are generally uniform in description, I suspect they may all be the same thing, or perhaps different subspecies. Large, forest-dwelling, predatory, intelligent, good at hiding, afraid or weary of technology, and apparently capable of assuming different shapes. I rest easy in the knowledge that deforestation will root them out and reveal them, eventually. Until then, my main curiosity is over what their motivation is. Why do they copy humans, and take over their lives, like the changelings and doppelgangers in old stories? Are they equal with human intelligence, or not as bright? This is the one blatantly paranormal thing that has ever happened to me, and it's not so hard for me to fit it into my worldview. If something is not widely known to a society which thinks it knows everything already, they tend to dismiss it as fable. No way in hell would I have stopped, gotten out, and checked to see if it was dead. Think about it. If it was alive, it'd be pissed, and I'd be an unarmed 17-year-old in the dark versus something that could survive a collision with a truck. If it was seemingly dead, and I tried to load it into the truck, and it turned out it was just taking a nap, I'm fucked, once again. My life was more important to me than possible fame, and on top of that, priority number one was putting as much distance between me and that thing as possible. If you'd seen the thing's face and mouth and the sheer size and way it moved, it didn't exactly scream friendly. It screamed, but I didn't even hear friendly once. What I heard was, "I'm going to come over there and make your insides come out, where they can't do you any good." I wasn't trying to even run it over with the truck. The road was narrow, I had no room to swerve. I made to pass it by, it made to cut me off, and I guess it ended up regretting it. I don't know about that. I had a very bad unexplainable experience one night, never saw what it was. Basically, I had been smelling a dead animal around my house for a few days. I took every effort I could to find it, only to find one bone. The smell came suddenly, stayed for a few days, and left suddenly. The day before the smell was gone and I found the bone, had to have been from a moose. It was huge. I had the bad experience at night. I was in my home, in my bedroom, watching TV late at night, all alone. I smelled the dead animal smell again, but this time inside my fricking house. I grabbed my Beretta handgun, loaded it, and part of it went missing when I wasn't looking directly at it, a part that was required for function, the main recoil spring. Blew my mind. There is no way to remove this part without field stripping the pistol. I grabbed my machete and pumped myself up, and cleared my house. Smell went away, hasn't been back since. Since then I have upped my arsenal, and have cleared the woods around me, no sign of the smell or what the hell it was. I'm not sure firearms would work against it, if they even fired. Location: Northern Maine. I live in Arizona. The woods north of where I live is called Payson. When I was 9 and my uncle was 11, we went for a hike in the woods. My uncle had gotten a 9mm for his 10th birthday, sort of a family tradition. We were told not to take it with us on our hike, so of course we hid that bad boy and put a fake black BB gun in its place. My fat aunt had no idea. We wanted to go shooting, so we walked a long way into the woods, long enough so that no one would hear us playing. We finally thought we were far enough away so that no one would hear us, but then we saw the cabin. It was really weird to see a cabin this far out, and I had a real creepy feeling about the whole thing. My uncle was a very brave guy and also very caring and protective of me. Pretty much all you could ask for in an uncle. He decided to make sure no one was there, and then we could shoot some cans and crap. I stayed outside and waited for him. About 7 minutes later I heard a loud smash and sounds of a fight taking place. I ran toward the house, but I cannot explain the fear I felt. I had an abusive stepdad and it made me very timid. When I got to the back door I could see into what was the kitchen. I saw my uncle laying on the floor and bleeding from his head. A homeless man, by the look of him, was holding him by his penis and balls and was squeezing them, asking if he was alone. My uncle yelled over and over that he was all alone. The man started kissing him and flipped his body over. In that moment my uncle noticed my crying face in the doorway and mouthed the word "run." He did not look afraid, he looked strong, caring. I understood he was saving my life and it broke my heart. 8 crawled back to our backpacks and remembered the gun. I took the gun shaking out of the holster. My grandpa had showed me how to use it. I went through the front of the house trying to be quiet. I could hear the sounds my uncle and the man were making, and they were awful. I pointed the gun at the back of the man and shot twice. I was expecting the sound but not the smell. All at once I could smell the most awful thing I had ever smelled before. It was blood and sweat and fear. I get sick just thinking about it. The man was trying to duct tape my uncle's hands and was about halfway done. The man fell forward, blood coming out of him faster than I thought possible. My uncle looked at me from over his shoulder and gave me a wide smile. His eyes stayed on me as he got up, pulled up his pants and took the gun from my hand. He said I did a good thing and that I had saved him. The man was making an awful sound and sorta snake crawling on the floor. My uncle shot him in the back of the head and he stopped. The walk back was very hard for my uncle and I could see he was in a lot of pain. He had blood running down his leg and I hate to think where it was coming from. We told my grandfather the whole story and he drove my uncle to the hospital. He had to get 11 stitches in his anus and the recovery was awful. The police did not find the cabin or the man they looked for like 2 weeks, even used a helicopter. They took our statement and that was it. People said I saved my uncle's life, but it was his courage and my grandfather training us that got us out alive. I miss my grandpa Ralph. As for my uncle, he is doing fine. He is a police officer and works with rape survivors. I love you, Chris. You are my hero. I posted a story about a year ago about how my friends and I find a weird man-made structure in the woods. I doubt if anyone remembers. But some crap happened recently and on Sunday I had a pretty messed up experience, so I'll give you the full story and what's transpired since. There's a small university in my town. About a mile behind the dorms there's a lake, and behind that some woods. Students are always going to the lake, grilling, drinking, smoking pot, the usual college kid stuff. The campus security doesn't bother with it since it's so minor and it's not on campus proper anyway. I don't go there myself, but I have friends who do. One day he and a bunch of people go and have a campfire. Everyone there gets ridiculously drunk, including my friend. He decides it's a good idea to go in a woods and find a place to take a crap. It was still light out, so he wasn't scared. He drunkenly stumbles into the woods, going about half a mile in. That's when he came across some sort of man-made structure, almost a mini fort or a wigwam. It certainly stood out. He thinks it's weird and heads back to the fire. A few days later he told me about it. Naturally, I was curious and I asked him to show it to me. He ended up taking me out there. I found the whole thing fascinating. This fort was made very meticulously and carefully, the sticks being about the same length. Why would someone build this? How long did this take? And how did someone do it without being noticed? We have our look around and go. But I couldn't help but go back. I find the whole thing fascinating. I went back a few times. Things took a turn for the weird one of the times I came back. An animal skull, placed at eye level, stared back at me. Understandably, I was kinda freaked out. I left. I didn't go back into the woods after that. But I did drive by, park my car, and listen. I heard things, like the faint sound of drums. I didn't go back into the woods, until last Sunday. Months passed, and eventually my curiosity won out. It was just too weird. The fort, the skulls, the eerie noises coming from the woods. I had to know what the hell was happening in those woods. The school year was ending soon, so I decided that my chances were slipping. Sunday seemed ideal. I dressed in dark blue, better than black at night. The human eye can detect the outline of black, filled my pack with water, an energy bar or two, my camera, a flashlight, and my knife. I didn't ask any of my friends to go with me. I'd asked them before and they refused each time. I also didn't want them coming out and pranking me for shits and giggles. I took my bike and rode it to campus and parked it and walked the mile to the woods. It was around 8 and the last vestiges. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced darkness before, but this was real darkness. The lights of campus were a mile away and the woods were thick. Without my flashlight I was completely blind. To make matters worse, the forest was filled with fallen trees. We've had several nasty storms and even a tornado out that way, so entire trees had fallen down. I had to be careful not to fall and break my neck. It took me 20 minutes, but I eventually found the wigwam. I had noted this previously, and observed it once again, but curiously there were no cigarette butts, alcohol bottles, soda cans, or condom wrappers like you would find if students were coming out there. The dirt had markings in it, but they were scratched over, like someone kicked dirt over them to hide them. I walked about 20 yards past the fort, hunkered down, and waited. Hours passed and nothing happened. I sat there, swatting bugs, fighting boredom, and asking myself what the hell I was doing, over and over again. 5 hours passed in this way. Around 1 things changed. The sounds of the forest in front of me quieted. I saw lights in front of me, flashlights, 3 of them. I immediately got on my stomach. As they got closer I could hear voices, 2 guys and 1 girl. I watched as they made their way to the wigwam. They were talking but I couldn't hear what they were saying. They got under the fort and started busying themselves with something. Moments later I saw a fire spring up. I didn't know any of these people, although they looked to be around my age, early 20s. One of the guys was carrying a bag, and they kept getting crap out of it. When they pulled animal bones out, a chill ran up my spine.